Good morning, everyone. Today is the 29th of August. It's Tuesday morning. Mark is continuing to read in the Doctrine of Election by Arthur Pink, Chapter 7. It's in Part 8. If anybody's interested in getting a copy of this book, go to greatchristianbooks.com and you can pick up a copy.
Doctrine of Election, Chapter 7, Part 8. 126, Doctrine of Election. Third, God showed himself to be the God of all grace and sanctifying thee. This includes first and foremost the bestowment of the Holy Spirit, who takes up his residence in the heart, so that thy body is the temple of God, whereby thou art set apart and consecrated to him. In consequence of this, mortifying grace was bestowed, so that every lust that received its death wound, they that are Christ have crucified the flesh with affections and lusts, Galatians 5:24. Quickening grace was also imparted, whereby the Spirit is enabled to resist the flesh, according as his divine power hath given unto us all things that pertain unto life and godliness, through the knowledge of him that hath called us to glory and virtue, 2 Peter 1:3. Justification and sanctification are inseparably conjoined, as the former provides an enablement standing for us, so that the latter secures our state, and thereby the foundation laid for our glorification. These inestimable blessings were the pledges and earnest of thy preservation, for he which hath begun a good work in you will perform it until the day of Jesus Christ. Philippians 1:6. It is in no wise a question of thy worthiness, but solely a matter of divine grace. I know that whatsoever God doeth, it shall be forever. Nothing can be put to it, nor anything taken from it. Ecclesiastes 3:14. True sin is still left within thee to further humble thy heart and thy luster. Ever active, nevertheless, you may be fully assured with David, the Lord will perfect that which concerneth me. Thy mercy, O Lord, endures forever. Psalms 138:8. True, thou hast the most inadequate appreciation of such wondrous favor being showed thee, and to thine unutterable shame thou must confess that your daily conduct is utterly unworthy thereof. Nevertheless, that too serves to bring out the amazing grace which beareth with so ungrateful and mild a creature. Before it, looking at some of the obstacles which might be supposed to stand the way of the believer being carried safely through all temptation and into eternal glory, we must guard against the possible misconception. Not the prerogative of divine grace to save men who continue how they will in sin, to save out an absolute sovereignty because it will save them. No, indeed, God saves none without rule, much less against rule. The very verse which speaks of him being the God of all grace adds to it, who hath called us, in 2 Timothy 1:9, declares God calls us with an holy calling according to his own purpose and grace. For without holiness no man shall see the Lord. The monarchy of grace hath fundamental laws, as all well-hyped and regulated monarchies have. Let the foundation of God be never assured, but Lord knoweth, loveth them that are his, yet it is added, but every one that nameth the name of God depart from iniquity, 2 Timothy 2:19. On the other hand, we do unhesitatingly declare the Scriptures teach the saving grace of God is effectual, all-powerful, infallible, principle in the hearts of the regenerate, enabling them to keep those rules that are set them as essentially requisite to salvation. The one thing which Arminians suppose stands in the way of this is man's free will. If God had made a creature which he was enabled to rule, we are not ashamed to affirm that there is such supremacy in divine grace that it engages all in God to its triumphant issue. So on the one hand, grace complies with divine wisdom, justice, and holiness and such rules. On the other hand, grace withdraws all other attributes of God into an engagement preserving of us, keeping our otherwise perverse wills within the compass of those rules, and overcoming all opposition to the contrary. Hence it is that God makes no absolute covenant. I will not turn away from them to them, good. They shall not depart from me, Jeremiah 32:40. We now desire to point out the arguments of comfort and support which may be drawn from this grand truth of the God of all grace, will safely carry his people through all temptations, having begun as the God of all grace and justifying them after this manner and sanctifying them at their effectual call, what is theirs, which should divert and hinder him from conducting them to glory, eternal glory, is the guilt of sin incurred by transgressions after calling the power of sin, again recovering strength in them. If neither of these and nothing else remains, both of them at times actually distress the conscience of minds of Christians. It's vital for us to point out that there is nothing in either of them which can even begin to turn God's hearts from off his beloved children. May the Lord graciously help us to make this quite clear. If anything was calculated for though God not to continue his grace unto the Christian, it will be the guilt of those sins committed after his calling. But that shall not be able to do so. If God justified them at the first from sins mount high, and thereby became engaged to continue to God of all grace ever after them, surely he will not fail to pardon their after sins. Compare matters as they stood in this respect to full calling. The state thereof after. First, at thy calling, God pardoned the continued course of sinning for many years, wherein there had been laid up a multitude too great for thee to number. But of pardoning thy sins after conversion is at worst but of backsliding and those repaired by many sincere repentance coming between. If then God pardoned the entire course of sinning, will he not much more easily continue to pardon backsliding, intermingle with repentance, even though they are sins committed again and again? Turn, O backsliding children, saith the Lord, for I am married unto you. Jeremiah 3:14. Married Israel had been to God afore, but she had gone a-whoring from him in his first conversion. God as a spouse and believer, and he did then give up himself to be a God of all grace to him. How marvelous is such grace to be his unfaithful spouse. Return thou backsliding Israel, saith the Lord, for I will not cause mine anger to fall upon you, for I am merciful, saith the Lord. Jeremiah 3:12. For so merciful is he, and he pardons on the lowest terms. We could desire only acknowledge thine iniquity, and thou hast transgressed the Lord thy God, and hast scattered thy ways to strangers under every green tree. And ye have not obeyed my voice, verse 13, to save is found again, Isaiah 7:17, 18, Isaiah 14:4. He promises to heal their backsliding. Now, if the God of all grace picked up out of the mire when our hearts were wholly hard and repentance broke them, and forgave us all our years of sinning, shall he not continue to melt our hearts when we backslide and cover us? Then he forgave thee all thy past sins in one merciful lump. Now he distributes his pardon daily as thou humblest thyself in transgressions. That fountain open for sin and for uncleanness, Zechariah 13:1. Is constantly available for us. Dost thou not confess thy sins, plead the blood of Christ, seek for mercy at the throne of grace, and beg forgiveness through Christ's intercession? Thou shalt not seek in vain, for thou, God, pardoneth not because of thy humblings and seekings, as thou are thy doings, yet in this course run his pardonable grace.
Thank you, Mark, for reading that for us. Hope you all have a good day today.